Hello, beautiful people. Today we're going to be talking about 2.5 literal equations and formulas part 1. SWABAT, rewrite and use literal equations. We'll deal with formulas in our next lesson. A literal equation is an equation that involves two or more variables. Directions. Solve each equation for y, then find the value of y for each value of x. So for part A, we are looking at negative 5x equals 4y plus 8. And the values after we solve for y that we're going to be finding is for when x equals negative 1, 0, and 1. So first thing they want me to do is solve the equation for y. So in order to do that, we're going to look at this equation and then determine, okay, well, what do I need to do to get y by itself? Well, if this wasn't a variable on the other side over here, we wouldn't really care. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this plus 8. And to do that, I'm going to minus 8 and minus 8. Here's a big difference from what we did before. These are not like terms. So I'm going to write them side by side. Negative 5x minus 8. Can't combine them because this one has an x and this one does not. Equals, the 8's cancel out, so 4y. Y is not alone, and I need it to be. So I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. I'm going to divide every single term by 4. So what am I left with? Negative 5 over 4x. And then 4 goes into 8 two times, so minus 2 is equal to, these 4's cancel out, y. Of course, if you know anything about me, you know that I hate writing it in this order, so I'm just going to rewrite it. You don't have to, but it clearly drives me batty. Just keep it in order. So step 1 is complete. I have written the equation and solved for y. Step 2 is to find the value of y for these specific numbers. So what I'm going to do is plug in those numbers, negative 1, 0, and 1, into this equation that I have here. So for the first one, is x equals negative 1. Plugging in here, I get y equals negative 5 over 4 times negative 1 minus 2. Some fraction action for us. Negative 5 over 4 times negative 1. Well, a negative times a negative is positive, so positive 5 over 4 minus 2. I'm going to need a common denominator. So I'm going to have 5 over 4 minus, putting this over 1, common denominator is 4, so I have to multiply by 4 times 4, and I get 8 over 4. So if I add the opposite, I get negative 3 over 4. Okay, do the same thing that we just did for x equals 0, and then y is equal to negative 5 over 4 times 0 minus 2. Negative 5 over 4 times 0, it's a great number, it's 0, minus 2 equals negative 2. Do that one more time. Okay, so finally, you're going to do the same thing for when x is equal to 1. So x equals 1, and then y is equal to, plugging in here one more time, negative 5 over 4 times 1 minus 2. Negative times a positive is just positive, negative 5 over 4 minus 2. And then just like we did here, we're going to get a common denominator. So this stays negative 5 over 4 minus, putting the 2 over 1, same common denominator as before, it's just times 4 times 4. So 8 over 4. If I add the opposite, the denominator will still stay the same. Negative 5 plus negative 8 is negative 13. So the two parts of this answer. Part 1, solve for y. Part 2, my solutions were negative 3 over 4, negative 2, and negative 13 over 4. So the part in red that we've just done, you've done that before. You just plug in values for x. I think the part of this that's new for many of us is just solving for y. Or maybe you saw it but you hated it before. This way you can see it and then pause, process, and then rewind if you need to. So looking at this equation, we want to get y by itself yet again. What's stopping the y from being by itself is the 4x and the minus 6. Remember that when we're solving equations, we're always going to get rid of addition and subtraction before multiplication and division. So that means I need to get rid of this 4x. What's it doing? Well, right now it's positive 4x, so to move it, I'm going to minus 4x and minus 4x. And so these cancel out, and I have negative 6y is equal to, cannot combine these terms. Why? Because this one has an x and this one does not have an x. So I'm going to write it as negative 4x minus 2. Now to get y by itself, I'm going to divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. Every single term will get divided by negative 6. These cancel out, and I have y is equal to. Now, this does not go into here evenly, kind of a buzzkill, but I can reduce it. The number that goes into 4 and 6 is 2, so I'm going to divide by 2 and divide by 2 and have 2/3. What happened to my negative? Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I'm not going to make it plus. Here, once you reduce, you have plus 1/3. More fraction action for you all. Actually, not what I had intended, but these are probably harder than what you're going to have on your homework, so I think it's fine because you'll be over-prepared. So let's plug in. The first one was x is equal to negative 2. So y is equal to 2/3 times negative 2 plus 1/3. Now, this is me thinking ahead a little bit. I'm going to put this over 1. I'm kind of happy that nothing cross-cancels. The reason why is because I already have a common denominator, which is 3. So I'm going to keep that just the way that it is. So negative 4/3 plus 1/3 is equal to negative 3/3. Because negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3, and you keep the denominators the same. So this answer results in negative 1. Nice. Started with a fraction and ended without 1. The next one is x equals 0. So y is equal to 2/3 times 0 plus 1/3. 2/3 of 0 is 0 plus 1/3 equals 1/3. Let's do that one more time for when x equals positive 2. Y equals 2/3 times 2 plus 1/3. Putting this 2/1, 2 times 2 is 4/3 plus 1/3 equals 5/3. So what are my answers? Negative 1, 1/3, and 5/3. First, I solved the equation. Secondly, I found the values of y for the given values of x. All right, one more for part C. Try it. This is a good opportunity for you to press pause, try it on your own, and then unpause and check your work with my work. If, however, you feel a little bit skittish with this, we're going to do it together. So, solving for y, I'm going to move this 6x first because I always want to get rid of addition and subtraction before anything else. And I have 10y is equal to negative 6x plus 12. Divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10. Y is equal to, now let's reduce this fraction, negative 3/5x plus, divide by 2 and divide by 2, 6/5. Again, I am stuck with some fractions, but it's not going to bother me super much because they have the same denominator. It makes my life a little bit easier. So now when I plug in the values, the first one is x equals negative 2, and so y is equal to negative 3/5 times negative 2 plus 6/5. So I have, putting this over 1, multiplying straight across, I have negative 6/5 plus 6/5, which is negative 6 plus 6 is 0/5. So I get 0. The next one is x equals negative 1. So plugging in, y is equal to negative 3/5 times negative 1 plus 6/5. Negative times a negative makes this positive 3/5 plus 6/5, which is equal to 9/5. One more time, but this time it's my easiest number. So I have y is equal to negative 3/5 times 0 plus 6/5. Negative 3/5 times 0 is 0, which is great. So I'm just left with 6/5. So this is my solution for part 1. The second thing they asked me to do, I get 0, 9/5, and 6/5. Kind of hard to say. All right, beautiful people, that's it for your notes, just those 3 examples. If you have any questions, please come see me. Your homework is not a lot of problems. I think it's just odd problems for 11 through 17. On the bottom of this piece of paper, I would love for you to write a summary of what we did in this lecture. So what did we do? What's the first thing we did and how did we do it? Any tips you have for it? The second thing we did and how we did it, along with any tips for that as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.